Hello everyone, Andy Schwab here with your Northern Ag TV. Well, during the National Ag Week, Montana Governor Gianforte joined producers and Senator Josh Kassmier on a farm visit to Circle V Farms in Fort Benton to urge the business equipment tax reform. That legislation, as you may know, currently in Congress, would raise the business equipment tax exemption from $1 million to $3 million. Governor Gianforte said they're keeping hardworking Montanans in mind by eliminating this tax burden for more Montanans' small businesses, family farms, and ranches.
Every farm and ranch in the state pays it. It's a burden, and we ought to raise the exemption. I'm so proud of Senator Kassmier's work. We've already taken 5,000 small businesses, farms, and ranches off the business equipment tax rolls since 2021, but we need to do more. And the proposal in front of the legislature right now would do exactly that.
Now, Eric Gray, owner of Heartland Seed and farmer in Highwood, and Circle V Farms' fourth-generation owner, Brent Hanford, noted the price of equipment has increased dramatically over the years.
You know, combines, if you start looking at $500,000 to $1 million for a combine anymore, depending what you're buying, I mean, $1 million doesn't go very far. You can tie that up in a hurry. So as our operation keeps expanding in that, it's going to help us out a lot to reduce our tax burden.
As prices and markets and the industry evolves, the government has to adapt and change those policies too. We're not in the world of $100,000 tractors anymore, and the business property tax is you're basically getting taxed every year on equipment that you bought with already taxed money.
Senate Bill 322 is scheduled to be heard in the Senate Taxation Committee next week on March 27th. Well, USDA Secretary Brooke Rollins is also being asked to look over ag policy when it comes to disaster assistance. U.S. Senator Mike Rounds of South Dakota sent a letter to the Ag Secretary this week to clarify the disaster assistance eligibility for producers. More so, he asked the USDA to develop a transparent set of crop insurance requirements for disaster assistance programs after ambiguous guidelines in previous programs required producers to return a portion of the disaster assistance payment. He said as the USDA prepares to allocate additional disaster assistance, it is his hope that the agency will consider the lessons of the Emergency Relief Program number 2 when preparing the next application cycle. As you may recall, the USDA announced details this week of a $10 billion in disaster aid for commodity producers affected in 2024. And today's USDA cattle on feed report is set to be released after the markets closed. Now, one of the interesting facts of that report is that the expected figures for the placements are going to be down 15% year over year. DTN livestock analyst Shaylee Stewart believes the reason for that expected lower figure is the continued absence of Mexican feeder cattle supplies compared to years past. She said it's important to note that although Mexican feeder cattle imports resumed in February after that country reopened the border following the New World screwworm case, imports from Mexico have remained drastically lower compared to years past for several different reasons. The two biggest reasons are the continued topic of tariffs and the fact that Mexico doesn't possess enough cattle to continue to export them to the U.S. as aggressively as they did in 2024. Now that, of course, will be playing onto the markets, and when we come back from the break, we'll see if that prediction played onto the markets in a positive way or a negative way right after this.
From the beginning, we've worked closely with farmers. BNSF's ties to the agricultural community go back 175 years. Together, we've innovated to make the U.S. agriculture supply chain one of the most efficient and productive in the world. Our strong relationship powers BNSF still today and helps us move the nation like no one else can. At BNSF, we move the nation for you.
Talking with someone that you know is stressed out, those are difficult things to approach, but if you're good friends with those people, reach out and say, I'm here to talk to you. We can find somewhere to get some assistance. It's hard to get involved, but at the same time, you want to just say, hey, there is help available.
For more tips in dealing with stress in agriculture or for free counseling for egg producers, visit beyondtheweather.com.
Well, cattle futures found a rebound better than any of the March Madness boards yesterday after starting with some sharp sell-offs in the feeders. The part of the rebound did come from the low placement expectation, as they were not trading on the cash cattle results since there was really no cash cattle yesterday. However, that optimism from the board should lend some helping hand to the feedlots today as they try to establish those bids. Looking at the local auction, countryside demand continues to remain strong as buyers showed strong premiums for high-quality, thin-flesh cattle, according to that USDA report. They also noted regional packers and major packers continue to show very good demand for those cows going to feed. As you can tell, some of those higher prices on some of those higher dressing cows. And for the sheep market, Sioux Falls livestock had a pretty good test of some of those finished lambs as they continue to remain well elevated, while slaughter and coal ewes, well, they kind of are slipping off a little bit, but still above that $1 per pound price on the full average. And the grain markets, for the most part, continued Wednesday's trading pattern as the wheat markets again led the way lower on Thursday, that is, after a poor round of export data in the morning. Wheat markets did, however, find a little bit of traction in the later hours of the session as the weather, for the most part, still remains on the bullish side of the fence for those hard red wintry areas. Corn and soybeans, on the other hand, were able to move higher, led mostly by the corn being benefited by that solid round of export sales reported in Thursday's USDA report. Outside markets were also mostly positive, with stock indexes up, but U.S. dollar strength following the Fed meeting on Wednesday having pressured the wheat. Well, that's going to do it for our ag markets. I'm Andy Schwab. Have a great rest of your day.